Hi folks, you're with Tacitus today at your Pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the West Coast African nation of Liberia. Now, Liberia's just near where Ivory Coast and Sierra Leone and those places are, and they're in quite a good sort of place in terms of climate and so on. It's quite well off in terms of water and so on. It's got a lot of very good quality farming land and rubber and cassava and rice and so on are grown there, and there's vast areas available for agriculture. The population is not quite 6 million, so in terms of people per square foot, it's not far from being overpopulated, and there's a lot of, as I say, good quality agricultural land, again with a lot of water for irrigation. So agriculture is certainly not an issue there. They're also quite rich in diamonds and gold, copper, and some other stuff. So they've got really in terms of the raw materials and agriculture and the small population and so on, they've got a real just on the sheer face of it, the prima facie you look at it, they've got an opportunity to be quite a rich country. They're far better off than say Singapore is in terms of resources. So now on top of that, they've got an excellent deep water port, and Westerners have put rail infrastructure in, so they've got a pretty decent infrastructure of roads and rail. And so the ingredients, they were gifted a Western sort of constitution and legal framework, courts and all that sort of thing. So really everything needed for economic takeoff or liftoff is there. This should, on paper at least, be quite a rich country. So let's just have a look at where they're at. Now, they've been free and independent for 175 years. It's never been a colony, so there's never been white people running the show. Blacks have always been in charge of everything, the politics, the economy, and so on. And again, there's no whitey around to evil oppressor, Nazi, fascist whitey. Whoa, slaver whitey. Whitey's just not been around. It's been a black gig from day one, and there's been quite a bit of investment in there to try and make it work. There's a lot of people have wanted a successful black nation, successful economically, socially stable, and all this sort of thing, but somehow that's just doesn't seem to be happening. So how successful have they been? Are they in, say, the top quarter of countries? Now, given again, just think about it, they've got enough agricultural land there to feed their population several times over and have large amounts for export. Again, the natural resources, the rubber and the gold and all this sort of stuff, they should be doing very well. So are they in the top quarter? Well, they're not. Okay, well, if they're not in the top quarter of the richest countries, well, maybe in the second quarter. Have to be in the second quarter, wouldn't they? I mean, gee whiz, look at that. They've only got a population of like 5.8 million, I think it is. So it's not like they're overpopulated. There's plenty of people looking for available to work. Unemployment's actually quite high there, which seems odd given the amount of arable land that's available. But hey, all right then. Well, so they're not in the top half. What about the next quarter? So the third quarter, coming down from the top, the third quarter, we're sort of around the middle, the lower end of the middle range countries. Maybe they're no, they're not there either. Wow. Okay. All right then. Well, all right, they're in the bottom quarter then, but they must be around the top of the bottom quarter. Gee whiz, given all that. No. It's in fact, Liberia vies for being one of the poorest countries in the world. If it's not the poorest, it's the second poorest, and I think it had a real jump and made it into third poorest. So it's one of the 3 poorest countries in the entire planet. Well, hold on a minute. Wait. How can that be? All that agricultural land, all those natural resources. They've got a nice deep water port. They've got transport infrastructure. But their average, their GDP per capita is $1,700 a year. So they're not a tenth of say, a first world nation. They're not, a 20th. So they're effectively doing what 3 or 4% of the wage of a first world country. So that gives you an idea of just how far down the ladder they are there. Now, just to sort of make it worse, in spite of all their agriculture and so on, their cost of food is only a quarter, approximately a quarter the amount of the first world. So they're making their wages are about 3% of what you would expect in a first world. But their cost of food is about 25% of the first world. Now, if you do some basic mathematics on that means their standard of living is around 1/10. If we just use food as the guide here, around 1/10 of what it is in the first world. So these people are pretty poor, as you can imagine. Infant mortality rates are almost 1,000 times higher than they are in the first world. Murders and all sorts of crimes are just off the charts compared to first world. Although, probably give Chicago a good shake, I guess. But this is a dirt poor, fucking basket case country. Now, they've actually been investigated by various United Nations committees for slavery. Can you believe it? So it must be the slavery. So did someone say the word slavery? It must be those damn fucking fascist, Nazi, white supremacist white people that went in there and enslaved those blacks. Those fucking Nazis. Wait. Stop. This is blacks enslaving each other again. You mean like they've done throughout history, long before the white folks turned up, blacks enslaving each other? Yep, that's it. So now there are over 20 tribes that make up the population of Liberia. And of these 20 tribes, the most prominent tribes have no qualms about enslaving the smaller tribes. And the smaller tribes they may not have the best quality agricultural land. So the only way the smaller tribes can get sort of any money flowing or whatever is to enslave their fellow tribesmen and then kind of sell them off to the others. So farm workers and mine workers and any sort of workers at all are pretty much slaves there, which artificially creates high unemployment of people who otherwise could work and get paid for doing that work. So it's difficult to imagine a more, like if you wanted to describe a failed state, then you would have a look at Liberia. But the whites have never been in charge. So this is something where, why have the blacks in charge failed so horribly? Why is there slavery? Why is there mass murdering? Why is there such high infant mortality? Why are they unable to achieve any sort of economic liftoff? Why are there civil wars continual? And even when it isn't declared as a civil war, there's this constant tribal warfare. And this is where they hack each other to pieces with machetes and so on. We don't see that in the news. Why don't the journalists from the BBC in Britain or ABC in the United States go to Liberia and say, wow, this is terrible. There's way too many black people here. There's no diversity at all. How come there's so many black people and no diversity? It must be because of fascist fucking Nazis. But that doesn't happen. Remember, only white people can be, only white countries have to be diverse. No other country does. But coming back to this Liberia being a basket case, now, again, all the ingredients for economic liftoff are there, but the people are corrupt, they're lazy, they're incompetent. The patronage sort of nepotism machine is running at crescendo pitch, all day, every day. So people's incompetent relatives are being awarded the most prestigious jobs, and they plunder and engage in massive corruption. So that's why there's no sort of economic takeoff. And there's vast areas of prime agricultural land where nothing is growing on it. There are areas where there is growth, where there is crops growing, but it's done so inefficiently that the yields per acre are amongst the lowest in the world, in spite of, again, prime agricultural land with lots of water. So there's no reason for anything other than sheer incompetence, corruption, laziness, ineptitude, and tribalism, and these sorts of things. So this is what happens when black people are running, whether it's a city in the United States such as Chicago, or whether they're running a nation state like Liberia. The outcomes are the same. There appears to be no difference. There's an absolute inability to make a go of these things, even when the white infrastructure, white standards and so on are inherited. That they can't wait to tear it all down, but then seem to look sort of quite bewildered. Well, where did all the wealth go? Now, if we look at sort of African tribal behaviour, why did the Africans never invest in the future, other than say the Zulus in military organisations? But why did they not invest in the future in terms of procreation? I suppose they did, but in terms of economic development and growth, it's because if you build something, it's assumed in African sort of community ownership mentality that everybody owns what you've just built. So your hard labor benefits others, but not you. So the reason Africa never invested in the future, worried about the future, and lived day to day was because of that communal ownership. Everybody owns what's in the community. Sure, the chief might get an extra slice of the action, but the tribal elders or something. But that's what it was, and we see that attitude in the United States today, even for blacks who've been out of Africa for 400 years. So that's the thing there, and it's the same in Liberia. Why do I invest in the future? Why should I? Why don't I just grab and take what I can right now and fuck tomorrow? And as long as that attitude prevails, then of course no economic liftoff can be achieved. The idea that you would do something for the common good, or that you would build roads and put agricultural policy in, stop slavery, stop corruption for the common good. Well, why would you do that? Everybody who can is grabbing whatever they can when they can. That's kind of how it all works. So this idea of doing it any other way is just lunacy. Why should you do something that may benefit others? Someone who's not in your tribe may benefit from this, so why should you do that? If you're going to do anything that does benefit another tribe, then you extract corrupt payments from them. So these attitudes prevail, and having done business with African people who, by the way, have done their senior high school and college in the West, they still have the same tribal mentality. Why should they do anything that may benefit others? And it's a very sad state of affairs, and you can't explain it to them as to how the common good. They look in awe at how rich the West is, but you must have just got it by stealing it from other people, because that's their only concept of how you make money. You steal it from someone else, and you steal their nice house, or you steal their farm, or whatever it is. That's their only concept. The idea of developing wealth through successful farming methods and discipline and effective management and organisation. They just stare blankly at you. Again, even ones that have been educated in the West. So that's what's happening in Liberia, and that's why, in my view, That's why there's never been a successful black state ever in history, other than ones that have simply enslaved their fellow citizens and sold them into slavery, that's made the area sort of temporarily prosperous, but only off the slave trade. You've been a Tacitus today. You're Pushback Channel. Thank you for listening.